Hey everybody, this is Perch, and one of the nice things to happen over the last week was that I think there was a absolutely perfect illustration of what people mean when they say they want politics out of comics that may just kind of end this whole fight. Now to recap, what happens is one person says, I don't want politics in my comics, and then the next group says, comics have always had politics. And the first person says, no, not like this. I mean, none of this politics stuff. And the second person says, look, I found this picture of Captain America punching Hitler. They've always had politics. What are you talking about? Ha ha, incel. And then it goes around and around like that. But I think there was this moment. We covered it on this channel already. But this moment where in the Page's upcoming Suicide Squad comic, they have Wild Dog, and we made a lot of fun out of his name, but Wild Dog, who's this legacy character, from I think the 80s, at least the 80s. And never a major character. This is C-list, absolutely. He did have his own title for a brief period of time, but this would definitely be one of the more obscure DC characters. And in the new Brian Azzarello comic, Get Joker, they have, the team is about to go into their mission, they have Wild Dog talking about how he was involved in the Capitol riot, and that he actually took a dump on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And it's a little bit that kind of goes on, not long. It's a comedy bit. It isn't a major part of the plot. It really isn't anything. It has as much significance in the comics as that Spider-Gwen annual where we saw, 2 pages of a MODOK that looked like Donald Trump. It's very, very minor, very, very quick. But it certainly made the original creators mad, who said, and this is kind of the gift, I think, to this entire situation. The original creators of the characters, who are definitely not right-wing, who I think, from their own posts and everything, abhor the Proud Boys and right-wing kind of propaganda and everything else. They're definitely left-wing. They were ridiculously offended and pissed that their character, the character they created, was inserted with these politics. And they didn't say, neither of these creators said we need politics out of comics, but they said that taking this character and twisting them into modern day politics, into this kind of stuff, not only did it not reflect the character, but it was not necessary. It kind of spits in there. They were both very, very angry. I mean, I think they use the word frothing rage. But what this illustrates is the perfect example of what I believe, at least, most people are saying when they say get politics out of comics. They're not saying get references to history out of comics. They're not saying no more Hitler. Look, I'm sure some people are. There's always some people who say anything. Like there's always somebody. But more often than not, when you talk to kind of normal comic fans who identify as right and left, by the way, this isn't I think the red herring is if people are too quick to assign Republican or Democrat or right or left to it, that tends to be people who are maybe looking at it kind of the wrong way, because most people can find a middle ground here who say, I don't want contemporary, current political scandals or themes inserted into comics. And keep in mind, it wasn't a bunch of kind of right-wing people going, hey, you're disrespecting the legacy of our character. It was the original creators themselves, who, again, were horrified by this idea that they would be attaching the Capitol riot and the Proud Boys and Nancy Pelosi and all this other stuff into their character. They found that terrible. And there is your answer. I think whenever this gets brought, people always drag out that same picture of Captain America punching Hitler and go, see, comics always political. What are you even talking about, LOL? What are you talking about? Here's Captain America with Hitler. But I don't think anybody is talking about Captain America and Hitler. If, for example, you had a Captain America comic book where Captain America gets very, very sci-fi, not kind of the brooding Brubaker style, but more like the Remender kind of wacky science style, where Cap gets tossed into a time machine. Maybe he's going to try and figure out some shenanigans that Dr. Doom's up to. He accidentally steps on Dr. Doom's weird kind of floor time machine, and it sends him disjointed from time. It sends him spiraling backward. And Captain America finds himself, going back through moments in history. And so if they had a storyline where suddenly Captain America was back in World War II fighting the Nazis and yes, punching Hitler again, I don't think a bunch of people are going to line up and go, why is this comic book political? I think if Captain America found himself back in the Civil War times and he's grappling with should he present the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and all the rest. If Captain America found himself having to fight the Confederacy, again, I don't think people are complaining. Some people, sure, but most people, no. And those storylines would be heavily political. If you had Captain America having to deal with a bunch of governmental red tape in 2021, and he's struggling with this idea of maybe when administrations change, suddenly a bunch of independent contractors come in and they take advantage of the situation, like AIM or Hydra or Hydra's maybe Roxxon is basically trying to take advantage of the situation, and Captain America's trying to sort it out because there's a bunch of people funneling government funds into nefarious experiments and things. Again, I don't think people are complaining. However, if you start to take characters like they did with Wild Dog, and Wild Dog, by the way, if you actually, the creators mentioned this, and it stirred a dim memory, and then I kind of went back and read some comics, and they're right. If Wild Dog was anything, it was left-wing. Wild Dog was definitely more of a left-wing character. But here, in this comic, they've got him 180, doing completely the opposite, doesn't reflect the history of that character, and it's needlessly inserts a gag about him standing on Nancy Pelosi's desk. That's the entire use of it. And that is a kind of politics that people are sick of. It's a bad joke. It often comes months after it was relevant, because remember, these comics are written 3 to 4 months before they hit the press and hit the hands of the customers. And so the joke seems dated. The joke's already been done on roughly 10,000 late-night talk shows and more immediate mediums. And it comes across as a Me Too, kind of, not in that way Me Too, but it comes across as a tired old joke being drug across with current events that will not make much sense in 2 years or maybe even 1 year, because people will move past it. When people say, keep the politics out of comics, that's what they're talking about. Again, nobody's complaining about Captain America punching Hitler or Superman punching Hitler. Nobody would really complain about street-level heroes like Luke Cage or Iron Fist or Misty Knight or any of those characters being involved in kind of civil rights moments that are happening back in the 70s. They are going to complain about things where it's like, let's insert them into like this CNN talking head commentary about a BLM riot, like the Chaz. The Chaz, if you have forgotten, and good for you if you have, was this very, very short-lived time when some people took over a couple blocks in Seattle. And when I say took over, the city kind of just left them because they had other things to worry about. It was something that the news media was absolutely inspired by. If you were on Fox, it was the fall of civilization. If you were on CNN, it was the summer of love. And the reality was, it was kind of a crappy sit-in. There was some violence in it, yes, but it was more pathetic than anything else. The business owners were pissed. There was a heavy amount of cleanup that had to happen afterward, and definitely cost some people, one of which I know in that area, a lot of money, and they ultimately just closed their shop, moved somewhere else because of the headache of all of it. But if suddenly you were putting that into a comic book, if suddenly you were taking, Ted Cruz and making him a Deathlock character because you think it would be funny because you don't like Ted Cruz, that's not politics. That is something else. So in fairness, maybe people have to say something different from, I want politics out of comic books. Maybe the word politics is the wrong one. Maybe they say, maybe the right wording is, I want cheap political stunts out of comic books. Maybe I want lame political gags out of comic books. Maybe I'd like these stories to have more thought and more planning than the writer, watching MSNBC for a half an hour and borrowing it for their script. Maybe that's what people should say. I don't know. But the funny thing is, I think everybody knows this. Every time somebody talks about politics or wokeness or anything else going on, in particular CBR, but especially Bleeding Cool, they always drag out that same, oh, look at woke Captain America punching Hitler. And you have to come to the conclusion, either they know exactly what people are saying and they're choosing to just, play this little game, or they're incredibly dumb. Hey, you pick. If it's the latter, why are we taking any of our news and information from these people? And it's the former. I mean, come on. Can we get a new joke already? Can we get a new bait? Because it's tiring. The message here is just, you can do your little comedy gags. You can do it all you want. But if they're bad, just like when they're bad on Saturday Night Live or any sketch show, you roll your eyes. They're annoying. So if you're going to do it, make it good. Make it truly funny. Make it truly memorable. Because otherwise, you're wasting everybody's time. Anyway, I thought it was helpful. This was a nice, and look, it was a case where the creators of the character were quick to point out what a lot of customers point out. Hey, this particular stunt, this brand of, political hackery, whatever you want to call it, sucks. Disrespects the character, disrespects the history, has no place in it. We don't like it. Now, granted, it's DC's right to do whatever they want. They hired Brian Azzarello to do this. He did it. It's their character. So the creators don't have recourse from that standpoint. But I did find it interesting that this whole little event helped highlight, I think, exactly what's really irritating people. Which, again, is not Cap punching Hitler. Cap can punch Hitler all day long. I think a lot of people would cheer for that. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. I think it's interesting. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.